Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. We have a really special event here for you. We have a completely open tech talk where you as a company, as a business owner, can ask our panelists any questions that you want and have them answered. Before we get into introducing each of the panelists and putting them on screen, just to let you know that if you do have any questions through LinkedIn, please throw them in the comment box. We will absolutely get them up for our panelists to answer and see what they say about it. So it is in LinkedIn. By all means, just look through that at the bottom. All right, before we get any further, let's introduce you to our panelists. Christophe, we are going to start with you. So if you don't mind giving your introduction.
Well, thank you very much, Dave. Welcome, everybody. My name is Christophe Reglat. I'm a Sxipher board member. Sxipher is a AI pen testing software.
Thanks, Christophe. Ahmed?
This is Ahmed Mahmood, founder and CEO of Ocean Solutions. We are a managed security service provider out of the DC metro area.
Thanks, Ahmed. And Juan?
Hey, my name is Juan Fernandez. I am the channel chief for SuperOps, an all-inclusive AI-driven RMM PSA, and also the author of the MSP Owner's Handbook, as well as have built an MSP in my past. So have a lot of great experience to be hopefully shared today.
Thanks, Juan. And Charlene, our CMO for MSPAA.
So happy to be here with all of our partners and thrilled about this opportunity to really talk about business solutions. As an MSPA association, our focus is to help our MSPs grow and scale their business with good partners and have really good conversations about solutions that actually work. So thanks, Dave, for having all of us here.
Thanks, Sean. All right, so we're all on. So again, this is going to be open for our audience to ask what questions they want to do. But before we do that, I'm going to throw up a question here for you guys, and we'll go into this straight away. So the question is down at the bottom. If you guys want to have a quick read over it. Companies are increasingly grappling with ethical considerations surrounding data privacy, artificial intelligence bias, and potential misuse of technology. Shar, I'm going to start with you on this question. What is your opinion on this?
This usually is a struggle because leadership and maybe operations aren't aligned. And when there's a misalignment, a lot of struggles will come, whether it's AI, whether it's their security baseline, whether it's their threshold of, their tolerance with, maybe lack of, or maybe vendor due diligence. This is a common problem at every organization, enterprise, small business, and even our own companies that will be faced with this. And it's first off in a disalignment with, leadership and maybe perhaps the understanding of what security means and what that will do for the business. Also, Dave, when I look in our room of our partners here, I look at each one of them and they lead from that position. And sometimes the leadership needs that education or understanding. And sometimes we don't do a good job of translating what security means to a business owner. So we have to take into our own account of how we are communicating that to our business owners and our clients.
So, Shar, you mentioned a few things, and I started with you because you deal a lot in marketing. But Chris, if you can follow up on this, marketing uses a lot of AI going on right now, but you deal with AI. How does that impact what you're doing, and what are the ethical considerations for you? Christophe.
Oh, for me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. AI, AI right now is specialized AI. Okay, so not AI as the same. For example, at Sxipher, we use an AI that is very specialized, and the only thing it can do is pen testing. Okay. So it has no access to, I would say, like a ChatGPT, to do large LMM, although it does a little bit, but it is, people have to be careful, with a large language model, AI like ChatGPT, because the answer might not be, the real answer. So they have to be educated themselves to maybe grasp, what would be the answer about, ChatGPT, correct? So it's not because it comes from an AI that it's, that's going to be true. Remember, AI is nothing more than a module, that sits on a GPU server, and basically it just works like a computer. And you all know that as MSP, garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you're going to, train your AI in a certain way, your AI will respond a certain way, right? Even if you go into a deep learning AI, the AI will roll its model into what it learns, what its base learning is, basically. So that's why you have to be careful about, AI, the way you push it, the way you use it. As a ChatGPT, you have to be very careful. For us, the way we use it is very unique and very, it does, a certain thing, and that's all it knows how to do. And all the AI right now, that's what they do. There is not a AI right now that is capable, and it will be a long time until they're capable to really react like a human. So for example, to say, I'm able to do like a pen test, but I'm also able to answer something in geography or history or something like that. We're not there yet. Right now, they're all specialized AI.
So, Christophe, you mentioned something very interesting, which I'm going to come back to in a minute. But Ahmed, you're an MSP, so you obviously have some sort of aspect in AI. Are you using it, and do you agree with what Christophe said?
We do use AI internally for our own purposes, but we also see our clients struggle, and we feel that what happened with AI, it was another opportunity, another kind of disaster that organizations were not ready for. It's basically data governance, data labeling, data access policies and stuff that organizations always thought they're too small to handle or deal with, caught up to them because AI now is getting everywhere, getting Copilot. And now the files that people didn't have access to, the Copilot had access and is going to provide answers out of and things of that nature. So it is an opportunity for all of us to basically help our clients organize data and put them in the right buckets. So they basically are controlled by our data access policy. And even culpating organizations from using AI is not really thing we could do today. Is just more of basically empowering companies to be able to utilize AI without having to be obviously feeling compromise of data or things that are going to leak out of the departments into other hands.
I'm not 100% sure I agree with everything you said there, but before I jump in there, Juan, what do you feel?
And I look at obviously SuperOps being an AI-driven platform, we're very cautious with how we approach AI and the way that we actually place data in certain data lakes and allow certain access to be able to do certain things. It harkens back to the beginning, I think, in managed services, where we started, early on to do assessments of not just the customers that we're bringing into our ecosystem, but also the technologies. And one of the things I see in managed services is that we're running really quickly. And I just gave this suggestion to everybody in Canada as I was doing a keynote speech around AI, was to slow down a little bit. I think that even the tools that we're using today and the ones that we actually have in our business, even though we may not be running to go grab or utilize ChatGPT, which I know everyone has a dirty little ChatGPT secret, it's one of those things that I feel like even the tools that we're using right now, we need to be looking at and thinking about, DLP issues and data sovereignty and privacy and compliance and regulatory components and reassessing those on an ongoing basis, because the sand is eroding from underneath our feet. And it's actually, it's up to our ankles right now. We don't realize it, but we're like, oh, okay, why can't I run faster? Well, because the products that you're using are actually already implementing those things that you're looking to implement in your business. So I think that paying attention to the world around you is probably the biggest place to think. And again, I think we need to slow down for a second and say, okay, what is it that I'm doing right now that's already using AI? Because again, back to the issue about, you touch it, you broke it, you bought it. We're already there. We're already in that moment. Like, we already own that situation. We're already in that moment where we have to start reevaluating the existing things we're doing. So again, I have a couple different views of this particular topic, but again, hopefully that helps anybody that's wondering about.
So let me throw this question back at all of you. So what are the ethical considerations? So Ahmed, you mentioned, using it, everyone has their own little repository, and you've all said that in your own little sentence, but what about the companies that are using it unethically and are using it in a completely inappropriate manner? What about those companies, and what do you say to them? Ahmed, what do you think?
Well, this is exactly what makes it bigger problem for us to really take cybersecurity more seriously, because the bad guys had also access to the same tools for good reasons for us. And as Christophe says, I use AI to do ethical penetration testing. Guess what? Another Christophe somewhere else on the planet using the same exact technologies to basically compromise environments that we are supposed to protect. So basically, it's this game has always been around us all the time. It's like, you know, we're fighting the battle disadvantaged with basically our opponents are just using the same tools in just the opposite way of we are. So I would say organizations have no way around this other than engaging in improving their security posture and basically deepen their understanding, implement some policies and compliance, help their team actually use the tool to the accepted level that the organization is comfortable with, but not protected, and not just even turn the other way. You have to have an AI policy in your organizations. You have to have something that defines to your team what is okay and what is not today before they do something they're not supposed to, and you had nothing to basically prevent them from doing it at the get-go.
Shar, I saw you shaking your head there a few seconds ago. You obviously had something you wanted to say there.
You know, it really starts from how we manage the environment. You know, I look at a written information security plan, WISP, as a standard baseline for people who want to write policy and then add in an AI policy like you were referring to. But I also think it's the ongoing. I mean, 89% of breaches are because of human error. And if that's already existing before even AI shows up, AI can't be blamed for what human error already occurs, right? That's the reason why breaches happen. That's why wire fraud happens. It's because it's a human making a decision, and that's causing the problem to then, you know, be present. But I also think that's really powerful is, you know, the MSPs are trusted advisors of these organizations. And so they have to make sure they're in check first in their own businesses so that they can actually talk from an ethical place themselves to then preach to their customers and to their environments that they're managing to actually have a policy to follow. And sometimes that's missed. Many times we want to say to do these things, but we need to remember that a standardization, a baseline of, you know, security and AI is hand in hand with our responsibility as an MSP, as a vendor, even in our own environments that we have, you know.
So Shar, you said, you mentioned trusted advisors there, and Christophe and Juan, this is for you. As an MSP in the community, companies rely on those MSPs, but what does an MSP do if they know their client is using AI unethically and for malicious intent? What do you say to that?
You want to go first, Juan?
I don't really think that, and I'll be honest with you, you know, you're always having to measure risk, I think, as a managed service provider, right? I think that should be the first thing that we actually look at when we're bringing products, markets, services to the marketplace. You need to think about the limits, liabilities that you are actually operating in around, and thinking about that. Like again, to gain trust is to actually be able to be trusted. And in order to be trusted, you have to be protective, right? And that protective implementation on our world as a managed service provider is managing to serve them in a protected and compliant and trusted mannerism, right? So it's interesting what you ask, because I don't think too many people are thinking about it in that way. Even in the case that we're standing right now, like, we've already ingested liability, we just aren't aware of it, right? And that's where I think we have to start thinking through, what is it that we're doing, right? What is it that we're trying to accomplish here? How are we actually trying to do it? I know that we're trying to hit the easy button and trying to make customers move quicker, better, faster, more profitable into the future. But that, where we're at right now, like, that disadvantage and our advantage that we think that we're actually bringing to market is a disadvantage as we stand, because, to your point, all those different ingest mechanisms are already here, right? Like, that simple click of a button to enable Copilot and allow, you know, not having the proper security policies and permissions set up sounded like a really good idea, right up until somebody can glean somebody else's payroll information through a quick query, right? Like, it's a really sensitive place to be when we're starting to play with stuff that we don't understand how it works. And that's where I think we need to be 5 steps ahead and start to think about, okay, if I do this, or if this data is here, where can it be harnessed from? Where can it be touched? Like, how can it be used? I think we need to have those stories and slow down a minute. But Christophe, I'll take your comment on that.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, seriously, Juan, because what you said before, you know, when you run an AI, not just, you know, I run AI to, you know, please myself. When you actually run an AI, you have to have a AI governance. Okay. You have to have framework around the AI, which is what we do. We have framework around the AI. You control the AI 100%. Okay. You don't let the AI go berserk, right? And there is also one thing, data governance. Data privacy is not what data privacy was 20 years ago. Okay. Sure. We're moving everything into, on the cloud. Everything is being digitalized, and like Juan said, he said, yeah, go ahead and use like a Copilot until your payroll's cleaned up. So it is the role also of the MSP. The MSP world are changing. Just like a CPA world, they don't care about doing taxes anymore. I mean, they have to do taxes, but they want to be guided. Okay, and I think the role of the MSP right now has switched, to they go see their client selling a computer. They don't care about that anymore, right? They can go get a computer anywhere. But they really want, the MSP to say, okay, guide me. Okay, so like Ahmed saying, I'm using this. Am I using it right? Am I doing something wrong? Is it okay? And this is going to be the role. It is already actually the role of the MSP. Like Juan said, it says careful of your liability, but it is the role of the MSP to actually guide, their clients and be their cybersecurity, expert, and be like, hey, this is the tool that we have now. This is what you can use.
So Christophe, let me stop you there. You mentioned something very interesting there, and I'm going to go into the next question here in a second. But MSPs are in those roles. How many MSPs actually do it and say to their clients, "What you're doing is wrong, and I'm not going to support you doing it"?
Not enough. But people don't do usually things because they want to do it or they want to do it wrong. It's because they don't know. So they're going to.
Let me stop you there. So that with that exact answer, I'm going to take us into the next question right there. Okay, the next question: what is acceptable in the U.S. economy for skilled tech talent, and how does that impact business operations? So, Christophe, you just mentioned talent and skills, and maybe they don't know, or maybe they do know. Based on this question below, can you emphasize and rephrase your answer based on the previous conversation?
I mean, what we're doing here, for example, today, okay, it's something that the MSP should listen to, okay? All the podcasts and things like that, what Juan is doing, about AI, that's how, they're gonna get better. Because, like what I said, they have to be the guidance, they have to be the voice. And there is not enough, like you said, Dave, they're actually going to say, the client says, you're not using this right. You're gonna have a problem with your data privacy, you're gonna have a problem. To the question was accessible to the US economy and skilled talent, we have to train, those new people to not just fix computer, but they have to get better at cybersecurity. They have to understand where AI comes, what does it do, how does it work, and how is it going to impact, their clients, right? And that goes from, Sxipher AI to ChatGPT AI, right?
So, Sean, sorry, Christophe. So, Sean, you work with a lot of MSPs, you deal with a lot of MSPs. What do you think about this MSPs not actually speaking up for what is right and wrong?
They're afraid of losing the deal. Let's be really blunt and honest. A majority of these reasons why the MSP is not more proactive or more of a, hey, if you don't pass my vendor due diligence before we even prospect you as a client, we're not going to even consider taking you onto our environment because we're wearing the bullseye, is because they're so afraid of losing a deal that they feel like their tolerance of that client and their environment is sometimes too high. I tell them, you need to get closer to a 90% threshold that you're willing to say, well, I need you to work on these things. And in order for us to maintain your environment, these are the things that need to happen day in and day out and be budgeted and appropriated. And I tell the MSPs, you need to walk away from the deal. If it's not going to keep you in business because they're not willing to be better at their security compliance and their framework of control, then you need to walk away because you're going to lose the war. It's not about the battle of losing one client. It's the war of compliance and risking your entire business because your clients aren't taking you serious enough. And, Dave, I'm going to say this to all the MSPs who are listening, is that you got to start somewhere. I'm not asking you to fire every single client right now. What I'm asking you to do is do your next QBR, sit down with them and say, this is our vendor due diligence expectation. If you don't do this, we understand that this may not be budgeted or this is not an importance for you, but for us, we are a trusted advisor who's advising you that this is required for us to continue to manage this environment and walk away from the deal.
Thanks, Sean. Juan, how do you feel about that?
I will say, coming from that world, I will say, when I look at how I approach things, and I look at the service that I want to deliver and the trust that I have to exude with my customer, and that being that trusted partner, not just an advisor. I'm not just telling you what to do. I'm walking you through how to make it happen. One of the things that I was non-negotiable on was best practice. And I recognize that in the managed services industry, there's like 3 phases. There's in practice, have a practice, and best practice, right? And when you think about those different phases, you also have a varying array of expertise in that, right? In practice, I might have, technicians that are Googling answers. When I have a practice, I might have 50% of my staff is certified. When I'm in best practice, I'm following frameworks. I have people that are certified. I'm performing and delivering QBRs in a mannerism that's meaningful. Like, you can see the differences between them. And when you think about the way you approach those things, I am concerned for those that are still in practice. And the more that this technology advances, the faster we stay in practice, right? Because we never, ever truly stand on best practice and say, no, customer, this is exactly how we're going to do it. This is the cost of doing business. This is the way we do it. Your limits and your liabilities and your lack of approach to cybersecurity or compliance or whatever aspect of it is non-negotiable, because I'm not willing to lose my business for your latency, right?
So
And
you mentioned one or two things I want to come back to, but Ahmed, I went with you last because you are an MSP. So I'm going to ask you a very sensitive question, if you don't mind. Have you told a client that you are refusing to work with them because they are doing something wrong?
Wow, Dave, that's like a humongous, whoa, everyone stop and listen to the answer now.
Definitely. I mean, actually, it had happened multiple times at a different stage of a deal, from somebody walking to talk to us to somebody ready to sign and to an existing former relationships. It had happened many times and at different levels of stuff. Like, one of the biggest ones was somebody's being public reputation is being attacked because it smelled like a legit spam, like not exposing much. It's a rare earth material kind of things, investments, and people start talking about it being a scam. And the hiring was not just as an MSP, but just to clean the reputation. And as we dug into it, it didn't smell correct. It didn't smell right. So for us, we just turned the other way, and we put RT partner with integrity on every employee's chest. Not because other MSPs don't have integrity, but it is a constant battle to remind ourselves every day that these integrity and these ethics are actually more important than a profit and more important than new clients. We're in a position where we stopped hiring techs. We're talking about skill sets in the U.S. economy and stuff like that. We have minimum requirements for tech skill sets. But we realized it doesn't matter where you are in the stage. The train is moving very fast. If we just hiring you for what you know today, you're irrelevant in 2 months. So we start focusing on people that are motivated, people with minimum basic knowledge, experience, that what we promise our clients, and motivate these people to help us as an organization to stay as current, because it's the MSP responsibility to be updated with these kind of events that happens all over the internet. We have to stay as much as possible relevant to what's going on in the industry. As Christophe was mentioning, there's a lot changing. Juan was talking about, I was delivering an AI tech talk in Canada, or whatever. We are supposed to stay on top of our game because our clients actually are dependent on us. That we owe it to our customers. I always say it, don't settle to sub-service. Just go to an MSP that would really not operate as a break fix, but rather tell you what's going on.
So what I'm hearing all of you say is, yes, there's ethical considerations for MSPs, but same for companies. And those companies also need to make sure that they're complying, right? And all of you have mentioned something about talent in the community, right? And in the channel and in business. And another sensitive question is, what is a adequate or sufficient or reasonable dollar figure that a company should be paying for tech services? Juan, I'm going to start with you because I know you've been in the channel for a long time.
It's very commensurate with what you're offering, and I'll say that because every MSP is different, right? We saw this emergence of MSSP, which actually pushes the range up even higher because those certifications aren't cheap. The level of expertise the level of education, training, and all the other things, like all of those are commensurate with your offering. So in the case where you have MSPs that are offering standard MSP-based services that don't have anything to do with security and compliance, maybe they're just okay with doing break fix. I think all of those play into the level in which you'll find it commensuratory with those salaries. And I would say that just because there's a wide array. I can't say that every MSP should be, secure, compliant, and configure. Like, there's a number of customers that just don't care. Like, there's a number of them that are in certain industries that doesn't matter to them. They don't have any pressure pushing them to make those decisions. But in the MSSP space, you're going to have a higher echelon in terms of that salary requirement. You'll be up in the 200 plus K range, right? Where maybe a break fix MSP still being able to afford that 30 to 50K employee. So it's just very different. And I can't say that we've actually, like, as an industry, everybody's moved up, because there's still so many arrays of tolerance there.
So Christophe, coming to you, with what Juan said and, those scales, how do you think those scales actually impact what businesses can do and cannot do?
Well, I think Juan pretty much nailed it on this one, but it depends, what your offering is, and it depends, what your location is. If you're in New York, you're not going to pay a tag the same if you are in Wyoming or South Dakota, right? It's also, driven by the market. If you are, like Juan said, an MSP that do break fix, you can go from like 125, 150 to $300 an hour. It's not going to be acceptable for your client. So the market doesn't drive that too. There is going to be a break point to where clients going to be like, sorry, we can't pay that. So techs, going to have to deal with that too. They can ask whatever they want, but the company has to make money, and it has to be, and who pays at the end of the day is going to be the client, right? So again, depend on your offering. If you're an MSSP, you're going to be able to invoice better. You're going to have better techs, but there is a lot of factor that plays into that. Locations, what your offering is, and at the end of the day, you're going to have to listen to the market. If you go from 125 to $300, it's just not going to work for you, unless your offering is completely different.
I like the word you used there, that breaking point. I'm sure. So Christophe said the breaking point. So let's say a company cannot meet normal US economy standards, and they pass that breaking point, and they're now in the position where they are looking for cheaper alternatives or cheaper services from MSPs. What does that do for the MSP community and the business community?
I think overall, the goal, guys, is not to drive the price down. And I think a lot of people, shop MSPs and, try to find the cheapest price and say, well, this guy can do it for $50 and you're trying to charge me $80. And then what happens is this MSP is like, okay, we can do this, this, and this, versus taking the position of, hey, we understand that you have a business to run. We understand that, this is a line item that maybe you're not really planning for, but let's work in a way that allows you to start where you are, and then let's help you grow. And as you see that external value coming in, and you're being able to, be more compliant, and then we're able to help you maybe acquire a contract because you're trying to go over, to another industry, or however that business is, they have to think of this business in a way that says, how can I help them grow so that they can value not only what we're doing for them on the technology side and security side, but more importantly, we want to retain this client. And so the first thing, Dave, I always tell MSPs is, don't try to drive the price down, because it impacts the entire industry. When someone else is doing all these things and they're going, okay, customer, you're trying to compare us to another MSP, but we're not doing that. The customer doesn't know that. They're just trying to get apples to apples. And so we need to come together as an industry, in my opinion, is to avoid driving the price down. Because like you said, MSPs need to hire more talent, or they need to hire level 3, but they can't because their clients are still paying for services at level 1. And so we want to adhere to where everyone is in business, but we also want to be able to set a stage where people can start where they are and then get them there, both on the business side, who needs to maybe acquire talent that's outside of the US because of where they are, but we don't want to leave them there. We want to say, how can we help you grow so you can get more services that match where your business is growing?
So great point. And Ahmed, I'm going to put another sensitive question on your shoulders here for a second.
I feel disadvantaged here, but
So you hypothetically saying, and I don't know if you've been in this situation or not, but you have a client who, as at breakpoint, they can't afford what normal MSPs, what the industry is asking, so they're looking for those cheaper options. Have you been in the situation, or maybe know of someone who's been in the situation where that kind of a company has then outsourced cheaper services to a brand new MSP in the market that is now managing a $3 million company?
We've been in situations where customer says our budget is way below that and we can't afford what you guys trying to do. And obviously our answers are always, we are too expensive even if we charge $1. It is about the value. It's not about the price. It's always expensive. Businesses want to drive expenses down, and basically we're expensive no matter where we come from. It's about differentiating ourselves from the market. It's about delivering and providing value, and it goes both ways. We were talking about the tech cost inside of the organization as well as the tech cost to our customers. In our opinion, obviously I'm part of large peering group, and you get the exposure to see how much other peers are paying for tech cost and how much they're charging across the country. And surprisingly, you see between Mississippi and DC where we are and California, there are different prices and leaps, and from $35K for a tech to 120 and 130 for level 2 tech, and the same thing for the cost to customers from $90 to $200. But in reality, it's all about the value delivering to your customer and the way you actually present that value. Because Charlene brought a very good point. I'm better than my other MSP. That's not true. That competitor might have a better salesperson than you, so they might sound better actually, although their services aren't. And so it's all about basically you trying to deliver your value and what you're going to give your customer. Even the customer that cannot afford you is probably they went somewhere where it was too crowded of a support that the cost was up. So bringing down the factor that your efficiency is going to make the team achieve other areas, their team, not you, not the tech, but technically the customer themselves are less disrupted. So they're actually on their mission more. They're producing more. Your costs become less relevant that way.
So I hear what all of you are saying, and what I'm taking away from this is, sure, we know that costs in the U.S. economy are going up. We know that it's part of business where it works, right? But I think what I hear you saying, one of the things to take away is that, as an MSP community, if we lower those costs, to your point, Shar, it creates a whole nother problem that none of us want to get involved in. We don't want to have to be explaining to clients why they should be paying minimal rates for their own cybersecurity, because then we jump into compliance, then we jump into ethical considerations, and it's a whole nutshell none of us want to go into. Let me go to my next question quickly, because this raises another very interesting topic. All companies, and we're all business owners here, but all companies have their annual revenue targets they have to meet, right? As a business owner, this is the question. No, not that one. As a business owner, how do you manage stress in a fast-paced, demanding environment? Because we are in demanding environments. How can we as individuals, as business owners, take care of our own health and our own stress levels as well as those of our employees? Ahmed, let's start with you.
See, every time, but all right.
He has stress right now, Dave, with these questions. You're so
right. See, you're putting me on that stress here. No, definitely. It all comes down to setting the expectation right. We could always talk about overloading our teams or basically stretching our abilities to reach ARR goals and whatnot. But reality is that, if we push too hard, we're going to get to a breaking point, and it's very expensive to overwork a team and lose and churn employees than actually adequately hire. It's more expensive to pay people less, and people could argue that is not true. But in reality, the market is very efficient, that we would have to really beat our competition and not make our company stepping stones for them to basically take our best talent, because we're unable to handle that. So we have health stuff, wellness, team events, team lunches, this fishing, that's whatever, trying to explain to our team over and over every single day, we're not 911. You don't have to melt down because a client needs a password reset. These things are going to happen every day. We are in the business of solving problems. So having a problem is the commodity of our business. It's not really an SOS that everybody has to run into. It's more of basically react to it with adequate patience and think of stuff from the simple perspective. Users always tell us.
Let me stop you there for a second. I want to move over to Juan at the moment. Juan, you've been in the channel for a long time, and you had 2 or 3 businesses. I'm going to ask you a sensitive question now. Have you ever put too much pressure on your staff, and what was the outcome, and how did you overcome that moving forward?
Yeah, that was an early mistake, and you learn from those mistakes, right? And I think the question, even to answer, how do you manage stress in a fast-paced environment? You have to plan for this, right? Like, I'm not building a business that's going to go well. Like, we all recognize, we all been in the help desk, we've all worked as an engineer, we all know what it's like to get out in the field. Like, this is not easy, right? So for us to assume that it's going to get easier for those that work for us is a foolish notion. The challenge is like, when we set out, when I built my managed service company, I was determined to create dream jobs. And I will be honest with you, my staff came to me just this last year at an event, and they pinned me down and they said, "We got a bone to pick with you, buddy." And I said, "What?" They said, "We're mad because we can't leave." And I said, "Why?" I said, "Because it's so quiet in the house that every time we stick our heads out for more money, it's so loud that I can't go. And we're mad at you because you built something that is so pleasant to work in, even though I might think I want more money. To stay is better than to leave." And that's what you have to start to think about, is engineering for your employee success. Like, you have to build a business. I wanted no noise in my business. Why? Because I didn't want what we just heard, was them thinking that every single time, like, something's like, how am I having the same thing over and over? It drives people insane. And that's where you have to manufacture and engineer for success. And that has to happen at your employee level so that you don't land up with this. I often hear, and I'll give you this one last thing, carryover vacation. It was one of the things that I actually was asked a question, okay, how much do we allow an employee to carry over? And I said, why would I want an employee to carry over vacation? That means that they're working too hard and they're not taking any mental health breaks in time. Why did we set out to create the policy in the first place? So that they would do that. We need to engineer that into their time. So every month they're required to take a certain amount of time off, right? You have to think about those types of things to help them, because they'll do what we ask them to do, and that's march. And that's why, as a good leader, we have to be careful not to kill them.
Christophe, how do you feel about that?
Yes. So, set up your expectation right is very, to start with, okay? Then you have to educate your client also how you want to be treated, right? Because you don't want too much noise, like, Juan said, okay? So you want to set your expectation, you want to set up, your SLAs, right? And you want to also teach your clients how you want to be treated. It's not because you're in the service industry that they can call and then yell, whatever. I would agree 120% with Juan. I did exactly the same thing here. My employees have to take the vacation during that year. It is healthy, it is mentally healthy, and I don't want any carryover. They have to relax. At one point of time, they have to go away, okay? Now, this question is about 2 people. How do you manage that pace? If you're a business owner, now on top of having the noise, of, everybody else and your client, you're gonna have even more noise about, legal staff and accounting and things like that. In all seriousness, it might seem a little simple, but take a walk. Don't listen to music, just go take a walk, because your best ideas are going to come when you're in a silent environment. You get rid of all the noise, nobody's talking to you, leave your cell phone at home, just go take a walk. Just take a walk and relax. And this is when you're gonna get your best idea, when you have not the noise coming from everybody else, right? Trying to hit you from, I need a raise, I need this, I need that, just relax.
So let me interrupt you there, Christophe. So I'm going to throw this at you, and then I'm going to move over to Shah, because Shah's a perfect discussion about this. But you get managers and you get business owners who feel that, we just talked about salaries, economy, We get business owners that feels they're paying their staff an astronomical amount of money and they should be working 24/7. No matter how you feel about it, we get people like that. And even doesn't matter what industry we get, that is there. Shar. Now, most of us know Shar. And if you know Shar, she runs around like crazy. Shar, I think you are a very key person. And please, if you don't feel comfortable answering this, please don't. But how do you do what you do?
How do you not answer that after he states that?
I don't know how you do it. How do you do it? Because I don't know.
I don't know. Can't answer that.
I've been very fortunate being from Hawaii. I think that contributes to a lot of how I perceive things. It's just to be one moment at a time. Self-mastery is really the most hardest thing for any of us who are leaders and have people who depend on us. But I think overall, I've been very fortunate to have this feeling or this personality or maybe this just culture of, I'm not going to be able to get everywhere when I need to, but I need to do better at being proactive, planning, being able to anticipate those things, assuming that, the worst can happen. And how do I, provide an environment that allows for that gap to be filled? Dave, what's funny is everyone on this call, sometimes when everything's falling apart around us, as leaders, we need to just stay hold to what our vision is, to stay hold to what our target is. And a lot of times, you have good partners. There are many times where I've worked side by side with Juan and Christophe, and, we've gone to the paces of it. And, we come out on the other side and we just go, how do we get through that? And people go, yeah, how do you guys do that? And I think, we work with our hearts. We work with the intent to do good. And so it's not really work sometimes. It really is just how we know what we need to sacrifice to get where we want to go. And Dave, you're a great example of that leadership as you lead so many MSPs. But overall, I think it's really who you surround yourself with at the end of the day, and really checking in with who you are and is it where you want to be, and being really able to self-regulate. I think good leaders take an inventory of themselves first before they expect everyone else to do that, and then they lead by example, by true example. And of course, you gotta just have a good time doing it. I mean, if you're not happy doing it, then that's another conversation of really being honest with yourself.
I'll be on that. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's our responsibility to build organizations that we ourselves are okay to be employed in. Like we put ourselves in these team members' positions. It's our responsibility to provide an environment we will be comfortable with ourselves.
Yes. And I think that there are so many companies that don't understand that. Me, myself, I'm also an MSP. I have clients that call me 10 o'clock at night sometimes. And Ahmed, like you said, it's not a 911 call to change a password, right? And I think that there's a misunderstanding, or there's a disconnect with economy and making sure your business runs and succeeds versus taking care of yourself. Because if you fail and if you go down, what's going to happen to the business, right?
That's correct.
All right, we have about 2.5 minutes left. So before we go into closing, I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to have just a few seconds of closing comments for anyone that's watching now or in the later. Let me take this question off the board. Charlene, I'm going to start with you. Any closing comments for anyone?
We all are wanting to get wherever we have our vision and our mindset at. But I think the biggest part of success is who you surround yourself with and who helps you to get there. So remember, you're not in this by yourselves. You're definitely not in this where, many of us, can sit across from you and give you good sound advice because we've been there and we've been where you are. So my one sound advice is that there is always one person who has the answer, and your proximity to those people is critical. So put yourself in the right rooms, follow the right leaders, and listen to yourself, listen to that gut that you have. That's why you have it. And so a lot of times the answer you need is inside of you, and just rely on that. Don't forget that that's part of what makes you a successful leader.
Thanks, Charlene. Ahmed?
If you're an MSP, I would say it's your responsibility to stay up to what's going on in our markets, using public events, using peering, using other activities it's your responsibility to keep our industry moving in the right direction overall. And if you're a business owner, you owe it to your team to not settle for subservice. You have to educate yourself into what a managed service mean to you, what kind of needs are there. And there are a lot of white paper today that could teach business owners and decision makers what should they expect from an IT provider, because it's important to go after the value, never after the cost of the service.
Thanks, Ahmed. Christophe?
Yes. So on two levels, also your personal level and your business level, don't treat anybody that you wouldn't like to be treated the same way, right? So just, it's a very simple rule, right? If you don't like the way you treated them, you probably wouldn't like that. For your business, just get rid of the noise, listen to your client. And like, Ahmed said, we are in an industry that is fast-paced, changing. Look at it, go to podcasts, listen to it, because you don't have time anymore. It is fast changed. Everything has changed. The data privacy has changed. Everything is changing very fast. Just make sure you keep up.
Thanks. And Juan?
Yeah, I would say that it's never too late to engineer the business that you want, right? When I think about the types of business and the things that we talked about, like when I'm thinking about how much, if you're worried about how much you're paying your employees, are you 3Xing their revenue? You're worried about their satisfaction. Have you done an employee satisfaction survey? Like, have you implemented process and procedure that empower your people to be successful? When you think about the leader that you want to be, you have to remember the leader that you didn't want, right? And you have to start, not only, we talked about all this as a reflection point of, hey, paying attention to where you're at right now. Like, not just in the technology that we're delivering, not just with the customers that we're talking to, not just from the pricing perspective, from your business perspective and the life that you're running. Are you where you want to be? And if not, change it. And the way you change that is by paying attention to the patterns. Look at the things that went bad and correct, right? And I think that those are really opportunities. And again, embracing the community, being part of those things and allowing you to be vulnerable and honest about things that you felt about is allowing us to move further faster. I'm a big proponent of that. You ever want to hear about how to tear things down and burn it to the ground? Come see me. I can tell you the dark roads not to go down. But this is why I've chosen to stay here, was because I knew everybody needed that. And I still think it's still there. So again, hope that everyone takes something from this and is able to move forward.
Thanks, Juan. Panelists and speakers, thank you so much for all your insight, your input. I know there's some interesting questions that came out of that, but I really appreciate all your advice and your insight. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. And this concludes the end of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.